Hola, amigos. Welcome back to New Dive in Life. Um, my name is Camiel Daamen. You obviously know me. And we have James Dexter here, who you might know too, which I'm really happy that you're in the show, man. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Happy to be here, brother.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been like I think more than a month because I was been away, and we spoke just before I left. And I'm really excited to have you on, man. I
Yeah.
love what you do. I love the Inermu label. I love your music. And this week found out that you were like on Lost My Dog Records and Love Not Money,
Yeah.
which is nice. I spoke to Joko today, and he told me he
Yeah.
was the last release on Love Not Money.
Was he really on
Then
Love
they
No Money?
stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like these were some interesting labels back in the day, like coming up, and I think lots of guys that were on there then now are making stuff for the bigger labels out there, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. It was a big influence for me, that label, like back then. It was a really good yeah, a really good like stepping stone, and a good like it was the first label for me that I kind of really felt like, yeah, this sound works with where I want to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, there was just it was just really good deep house music, wasn't it?
It was really good, you know. I think it was a stepping stone for many people back then, you know. Like, and also I got the promos, and there was always something in between. Of course, they did like a lot of VA kind of things, like you get like a promo with like 12 different artists.
Yeah.
But it was really nice getting these tracks, and I think for many people, having these releases in the beginning of early stages of a career, it can be really important, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
for
probably
sure.
did the same for you, like gives you the confidence, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And how old is Inermo actually? How many years have you been running this? Like,
So it will be 7 years this year in October. So I did
wow.
actually no, sorry, 6 years because it was 5 years last year, but obviously lockdown stuff
Oh,
happened,
yeah.
so we didn't really celebrate it. So I had label parties planned and everything for the 5 years, but
Yeah.
yeah, so 6 years this year.
Oh man, yeah, this pandemic really hit you, yeah, because we spoke when we like in March when we were planning this, and then you said
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, I really had the feeling before pandemic it's gonna go like it went really well, and you were a bit scared of what when it doesn't come back, you know. But it
Yeah,
seems to be all
yeah,
right. So you go
yeah.
to Australia, and you know.
Yeah, no, it was. I'm sure it was for a lot of people. I mean, it was tricky. It was uncertain. What was gonna happen and how long it was gonna last.
Yeah,
And I did really feel like I was picking up a lot of good momentum at that time.
yeah.
So it happened. A lot of people were affected by it. So it's just a case of moving on and working harder and making it happen again. And this year has been good to me so far. Like it's like you say, I've had some really good gigs already. So yeah, I'm confident that things are back where they should be, and we're kind of on the road to
Yeah,
not
man.
looking back to,
Yeah,
to
and
where
you
where
get
it was.
you get a lot of music coming out as well. So you know, it means like you've. I think many people have been working hard during the pandemic, and you know that you have loads laying around, and you can pick up where you left off, basically. And I think we're actually doing that all right now.
Yeah. It
Well,
was it,
people.
it,
Yeah,
it, it was an interesting time because it was like for the first time I felt a little bit of pressure off in terms of like making music, right? Because there were no clubs open, there was no kind of urgency to get music out, and it was a
yeah,
case of I didn't want to stop releasing at all. I thought it was important to keep consistent and keep music coming because not everyone is listening to music just to go out clubbing. People enjoy listening to the tracks just out and about wherever they may be. So I still felt it was important to keep releasing, but I did hold back some things so it wasn't
yeah,
as much.
yeah.
But yeah, that time was the first time in like probably nearly 10 years I didn't feel a pressure to like, man, I've got to keep. So I kind of eased off a little bit in the studio, but it was good because it was a bit of time for reset and
Yeah.
kind of just figure out new things moving forward. So yeah.
Yeah, well done. Well, you know, it's nice, and it seems you have a nice little little spot there, you know, with the Inermu logo there. You got some vinyl, so you'll be all right, man. If they
Yeah, it's
put
all
us in
good,
lockdown,
man.
you have a good time in your man cave, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
uh,
There's worse places to
yeah,
be, man.
exactly, man. At least we have a hobby, man. What can you imagine
Yeah.
if you don't have a hobby and you're like locked down, you don't know what to do?
No, I
Uh,
know. No, this is great. This is my space. This is my
Yeah.
safe space.
Yeah, good
This
to
is
see,
great. I
man.
love
There's a lot of other people online. They're all like
it.
talking. They're happy you're here. Adonis, welcome. We got Alex Monachov, Pinkovic, Mr. Pinkovic, welcome, bro. Low House, like some regular faces in there. Ben Davies, nice. It's good to have you guys. Yeah, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. If you have a comment about the sound or something is off, please let us know. Then I can handle it because it's been a while. I've been at this, you know. So maybe I forgot a setting or whatnot. So let me know or let us know. We're gonna talk about music, of course, but maybe first let's play some music so you know who James Dexter is if you don't already know him. Welcome, The Influence. Welcome in the stream. So let's. Which one are we gonna play first? I've got the sublease or sublies. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's sublease. That's how I think
Yeah,
it
right.
is.
Um,
Yeah, we could go with that one. That
let's
one's
start with.
it's a new release coming out with. It's a collab that I've done with Denny, and it's out next Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I already listened to it, of course, because you sent it, but also on the SoundCloud, it's there. And maybe nice to mention that Sublease is like a sub-label of Poker Flat Recordings. So it's
Yes, it
Steve
is.
Buck
Yeah.
and
So
his
I
crew.
believe they've stopped doing releases on Poker Flat now, and they're kind of pushing this as their new baby. So it's the same team behind the label. Um, Denny sent the tracks to Steve, and originally for Poker Flat, but he kind of said, "Look, we're kind of moving away from this, and we want to push this new label." So we kind of thought, "Yeah,
Oh, man.
why not?" It's the same team behind it, right?
Yeah,
Same audience, same channels, the way that they're
yeah.
promoting everything. So yeah, it felt like a good, good route to go. And
Poker
it's actually
Flat.
this Friday.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's
Oh,
not
this
next
Friday.
Friday. It's released.
Okay,
Yeah, too
this
late.
Friday, so people
Yeah,
can get it this Friday. It's super.
yeah,
No, good
man.
to know. Good to know. Poker Flat, man, that's legendary. So they're stopping the. I used to play a lot of the Steve Bug stuff back in the day. You know, the old minimal age. You know, and
Yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah,
like 15 years ago.
yeah.
Insane. I'm
I work,
happy.
I work in a record store as
Yeah,
well, and forever finding the store prides itself on old secondhand collections, buying it in. There's a few new bits in there, right? But it prides itself on just bringing in old collections from DJs, and I see so many of like Steve's old records and
yeah,
stuff that come through, and there's some great records in there,
yeah,
man.
man. Yeah.
His old young stuff, older stuff.
It's like the old John Tejada and Steve Buck are in like sort of like the same era for me when I like discovered them, you know. And also,
Yeah,
as I told you this week about Infiltrate from Traffic Science, which is also Steve Buck. I think they did a few releases as Traffic Sciences are also amazing tracks. So guys, if you're watching, check out those
check it
names.
out.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
right. So let's play for you out
yeah,
on
that's the one.
Sublease this Friday. Perfect.
Oh,
Lovely tune. I think everybody really really likes it. We see a lot. I see a lot of comments. It will be out on Friday, so you couldn't
Friday the
Shazam it.
13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th. Ooh, exciting! It's one of
Yeah.
those again. Aha, yeah, Friday
Mhm.
the 13th. So it will be out then. Welcome, Andres. Good to see you in the show. Bienvenido. Nice, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to chat more about the production side of things, because you work in Logic, so it's actually a dive in Logic today.
It is a dive in Logic. I've had a few people message me since they saw me say I was doing this dive in live, and everyone's like, "Hey, but you use Logic." I'm like, "It's cool. Like we can go through
Yeah, you know,
it."
we're all friends here.
That's it.
We're all
That's it.
nerds. You know, we love talking about plugins. If they're in Ableton or Fruity Loops or what, it doesn't really matter.
I think most of the time people are using the same plugins regardless of the door. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know, actually, like the piano roll in Fruity Loops is really good. I like the internal synths of Logic pretty much, and
Yeah.
like the compressors are pretty good. But then Ableton is really creative. You get session view, you know. So there's a lot to say about any. Of course, I'm a certified trainer. I should say Ableton is the best. You know.
Ableton's the best, yeah. I think had I have been getting into production now, I probably would have started with Ableton. It just feels like that would have maybe suited me better, but I'm so many years deep with Logic now that my setup works. So I kind of, I'm so
Yeah.
quick with using Logic that, I've toyed with the idea of changing, and I'm happy. It works for me. I don't really feel the need to change it, you know?
Yeah, it's always it's tough, man. If you've been using like Logic for so long, I made the switch to Ableton. I think I was flirting with it in the beginning, but it wasn't yet. It didn't have MIDI yet, so we did build we did. It didn't have like MIDI instruments. It only was an audio kind of unit. So I built a live set. Like I think it's 19 years ago or something like this with one of my friends where from the city I grew up in. And then, but I was still using Logic, so I was exporting all the stems from Logic into Ableton in order to play live with it. And then I slowly made the transition, but I worked until Logic until 5.5 when it was with the
Yeah.
lady with the headphones on, I believe, like the, and then they only decided only to do it on Mac, and then I was still on PC, so I switched to Ableton, and then I
Yeah.
never really looked back, but you know. It's interesting. So, have you used any other DAWs before Logic? Did you try Reason or some of this stuff?
So, I mean, I played around with all of them. I was using Cubase. That's like when I was at college doing music stuff then.
Yeah.
I had Cubase, but that was short-lived. That was maybe for like a year. I had that on a PC at the time as well. And then I think I had a copy of like a cracked copy of Fruity Loops for a while. And then I just went properly into Logic because when I did, I think it was the second year of college, everything changed and they upgraded all the computers and everything. So it was all like Logic and
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I've used Ableton before. I used to rewire Ableton and use it to like audition loops and stuff through
Yeah.
Logic.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they brought out like Loop Cloud. So now it's kind of easier to rewire. You can store your samples in there now and use that as a
Yeah.
rewire.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've played around with, and I've made music with people in other people's studios on Ableton. So I'm very familiar with it,
Mhm.
and I could put something together in it, but
Yeah.
I'm just in it with Logic.
Yeah, it's just the time, and also it's time wise. You know, if you want to make the transition, you need at least a few months before you're really as fluent in the new program as with Logic. You know, so it will take it will just you'll lose a lot of time. And these
Yeah,
days,
I think there very much is a sort of one step back, two steps forward kind of approach. With switching doors, it is going to take you a bit of settling in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I say, it works for me what I'm doing, so I don't really feel the need
Yeah, the
to.
need to change. You never change a winning DAW.
That's
Even
it, man. If the formula works,
yeah,
I'm happy. I'm confident with it,
yeah,
and yeah, so it's all good.
even though Diet Crisp says never too late to change.
I really,
But
yeah.
Justin Nouveau is very happy. He's happy he stumbled on this. Glad I'm here. He actually has a question. What influenced you at such a young age to create such a heavy sound? Did you make a really heavy sound at a young
Good
age?
question. I don't know. I mean, it depends how, if I might be young, I might be older than he thinks I am.
Yeah,
I don't know
I don't
how
know.
long ago he's asking this question. I was, before I started making music, I was DJing garage and drum and bass. So I guess those kind of sounds are quite heavy in themselves, right?
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
And then yeah, I kind of progressed going through the motions when I started making music, making garage, drum and bass, hip hop, loads of stuff, until it wasn't really until I started, that was when I was like 16. So it wasn't really until I started going clubbing and going out properly that I then really got into house music and kind of
Yeah.
noticed that that's where my ears kind of lay when it came to like making music. I kind of
Yeah.
felt things clicked really well with that. Influence wise, I don't know, man. Just just from clubbing, maybe.
Yeah, like all of us, like actually, I used to be like a real rave head, like UK hard house. I went to Camiel
Yeah.
Palace in London when I was like 18, and Josh Butler has the same. He's also used to like this old school Nucleus and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But I can appreciate some drum and bass as well, man. I love that, and
yeah.
it's really nice to see how some of the producers make it. If you really wanna, if you're watching, if you really want to learn a lot, check out some drum and bass producer
Yeah.
tutorials.
I
These
listen
guys
to
are
the drum and
sick.
bass stuff, and I'm just like, it blows my head off sometimes how
Yeah,
like they produce some of the sounds and
mm,
how they get everything to fit.
insane. Yeah,
It's insane, and like
yeah,
I love all music, man. Don't as much as I'm in this doing house music, like there's not really anything I don't like, and I listen to such a wide spectrum of music, and most of the time what gets me about it is how well something's produced. I like, there's some pop records out there that you listen to and you just like,
yeah,
it's amazing purely just from how well it's produced. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of not good stuff as well, but there is some amazingly
yeah.
produced pop music that sonically just sounds so good. I don't know how you couldn't like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some really good stuff out there, but I do like the more deeper sounds because it's more challenging. And if I
Mm,
listen to like in Air Moon, what you release, you can really hear the different influences, but all brought in sort of like a deeper kind of vibe, you know. So there's like a garage
yeah,
influence on one EP. There's maybe dub techno, like for instance, the Luna Ludmilla stuff is always a bit more dubby.
yeah,
It's nice to see that you have all these different artists and all these different vibes. It's once a bit more Jackie housey kind of vibe,
yeah,
but still the deep sort of influence, which I really enjoy on
yeah.
the label
I'm
side of
glad you
things.
say that, man, because for me, as much as the label, I want it to be, under a bracket of, let's say, deep house originally was what I would have classed it as. Things
Mm,
may, move maybe more minimal as time, but still fundamentally it's like underground house, and it's, it's deeper side of things. But I also want every release to be different in the sense that each artist brings their own sound,
yeah,
rather than following trends. I know things move in trends, but I put it this way, maybe like 95% of demos I get sent all sound the same,
yeah,
and that doesn't interest me. So I want an artist to bring their particular sound and
yeah,
their little flavor to it,
yeah.
and if it fits underneath the bracket of what I play and how, that's what I look for. So it's nice that you can notice that within the releases, that it
Yeah,
is slightly different flavors, but still you could go to a label party and could play all the tunes and it would work at the same party.
yeah, even though they have roots in different genres, I feel, because I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Luna Ludmilla. And obviously, she's Dutch, and I know she's been on your label, and I really like her dubby stuff.
She
Uh,
does some great stuff, man. Really, really nice
yeah,
and
and
dubby.
recently she's been really, I don't know, her last music, man, with the Dutch lyrics in there, is like very, very, very well done dub techno, man. That I
Hmm.
was really like astonished. I played one of her parties like, I don't know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. One of her, she's super young, organizing parties, sublunary nights in Utrecht, and always just really get along. And I really like her
Yeah,
dub sound. And she's like very, she sticks to that. And yeah, and some of the tracks on your label are a bit more, they're going towards that minimal stuff, but also a bit more house. So it's nice to see all these different vibes going on. I really like
yeah.
that.
I like to. I guess for me, the sort of fundamentals of the final decision for me of releasing something is like, am I going to play this, and am I going to play this in like 10 years time? That's the sort of final decision. And the music that I release, I think, represents the music that I play. I don't just play just deep stuff. I do play some house stuff. I do play some minimal stuff, and it's just, you know not every set you get to showcase that, because you might not have as long as you'd like, or you
Yeah.
know, depending on the party, you kind of have to stick to a certain style. But you know,
Yeah.
I like to think that the label kind of represents what I play as well as a DJ, and it kind of all fits under the same bracket.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact that, you know, there are some tracks that are released that are, you know, sound great on the radio, and then some, you know, 2 weeks later they'll work at an after party, or they'll work, you know, it's just about having, yeah, the different flavors that work at different places.
Yeah, so also sort of like authenticity that you're maybe looking for in like a release of a producer, you know, that it carries something of themselves, as you said, which is
Yeah,
really nice.
100%. I
Yeah.
want them to have like their own twist to what they're doing. Everyone's doing this house thing, right? Everyone's doing, you know, we're all making house music, but there's
Hmm.
just got to be a slight twist to what you're doing that makes it your sound,
Yeah.
that makes it stand out from the other tracks.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that's also a nice role of your label. You know, and that's I think that more labels, yeah, could do this. You know, to be a bit more picky about things. You know, but then also like replying to the guys like, hey, you know, try a bit more. You know, just keep making stuff and trying to find your own voice in there. You know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Let's see. There's a question from Rubal. Justin, we're gonna wait with your plugin question for when we go into the plugins or into the DAWs. But Rubal has a question. He asks, when you are starting as a beginner, do you think one should try and make different types of music, like house or disco-ish or minimal and so on, or should you try to make only one style records? Well,
Oh, I guess it depends if you already know what you want to make. If you're just still trying to, you know, some people have been clubbers for many years, or DJs, and they already have a sound that they really dig, right? And then I would probably say it's good to try and home in on that. But if you're just experimenting with making music, I think it's great to experiment. You know, I think we talking before about people having their own sounds, right? People stumble on those sounds from trying different things, and you might find that, you know, making a disco style track, you might find that a certain sound that you've used in this disco track might actually work really well with another style of house music, and fusing those two together might create your unique sound, right?
yeah,
That's how these things, I think, kind of develop.
yeah, man, agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
but
it's all,
there's no rules to this, right?
yeah,
I think it's just, as long as you're having fun with it, that's the important thing.
yeah,
Something that I've noticed a lot, like, you know, the last couple of years, I've done like online one-to-one tuitions with people and coaching and stuff like that for productions. And one thing I have noticed is there seems to be a slight trend when people are chasing a certain sound, that there's a level of frustration that they're not achieving that sound. And
yeah,
I feel that if you let that frustration build up, you're then not kind of opening yourself up to other possibilities and other accidents that might happen that might create something new, because you're just so focused on chasing something else.
yeah.
So, you know, it's about finding what works for you. And I think the more open you can be when experimenting, particularly if you're trying to find a sound or just starting and just being kind of rolling with it, you just ask the question, are you happy with what you're making? And do
Yeah,
you think
exactly.
it sounds good? Not everything's going to sound good, and you might not be happy with everything, but
Yeah,
one
yeah,
day you might stumble across a tune that you've made and gone, hey, I actually really like this one, and it
yeah,
doesn't sound like everything else, but
yeah,
it might be just because you've found a combination of a kick and a snare and a hi-hat that makes it your style, you know.
yeah.
And like, you and I can probably notice the difference between a lot of producers just based on their hi-hat and their kick and their clap,
Yeah, the
because
choices.
they
Yeah.
use that for their sound,
Yeah,
right?
and their
So
swing, you know, and the way they, you know, the way you produce, and I think over time, as you say, by exploring as well as exploring different sounds, you see what velocity actually is doing to your groove, or what a longer hat actually does to a groove, or a shorter hat does to a groove. And I think
yeah,
it's also developing your own taste. It's not as much as if you can do something. It's what do you want to do? Do you want to make something like this or like that? And you have to explore. So I think it's really good,
yeah,
as you said, to explore different genres as well, because sometimes you're just done with your. You just want to go make a breakbeat, or you want to make something super slow, make a 105 BPM, or start with some ambient, and later on you put in some beats on it. As long as you said you're having fun,
yeah.
it will teach you something. Every session will
Yeah,
teach you
and I think
something.
it's important as well, like with the whole like experimenting with stuff. I think the less you can think about what you're doing, the better. because then you're going to come out with stuff naturally, right? And as I touched on before, when people are so focused on trying to replicate a certain sound, it's that I don't feel like you're allowing yourself to be open to other mistakes or other, you know, experimentation that can create something new. So yeah, just like being open to experimenting and enjoying that process, and then hopefully after a bit of time you might just find that, hey, I'm actually really liking this, something different about this.
Yeah, man. Or I always say, call your mom, have her say something, record it, and start with this. You know, do
Yeah.
something out of the box, something that you wouldn't normally do. But if it's your mom's voice, you better make something nice from it. That your mom goes like,
Yeah,
"Oh, thanks,
yeah.
son. Well done." Whatever, you know, just have fun. That's, I think, the most important thing.
100%, man.
Okay, let's
100%.
do one more question before we get into the technical stuff.
Sure.
Justin Duval asks, "What's the biggest thing you learned when it came to getting Inermu off the ground?" And I think this is a really nice question, because how is it starting a label, and what's the biggest thing you've learned when
It's
you?
funny. I did an interview this week for some, like, with the PR towards the sublease release, and a kind of similar question came up. For me, I've just always had tried to keep the you know, the running of the label as organic as possible. There's I think there's a lot of different approaches to running a label. Some people see it very much as a business, and if it's very much as a business, it depends what your goal is, right? Is the goal to create a label that you straight away just want to make money from, or, you know, you want to do the label so you can do parties, or you know, you have a big fat goal right at the start. But mine happened a bit more organically. It originally started because I just was getting frustrated with not being able to sign music to the labels I wanted, but knowing or feeling that my music was good enough. So I just wanted an outlet that I could put my music out on, right?
Yeah.
And that was really how it kind of started.
Yeah.
So sorry, I've gone off piece a little bit. He was asking what
What's the biggest thing you've learned in that process? Yeah.
yeah, so on that, I was just saying that, yeah, organically I kind of put it together to release my music, and then I've just, because that was the nature of how it started, I've just learned stuff as I've gone along. So I don't really feel like there's been too
Could
yeah,
we
sorry.
say that you might have learned that believing in yourself, because I think it's a bold move, man. I'm actually thinking about starting a label as well. I've been talking to some people for some designs and whatnot, and
Yeah,
because I really like to build a platform for people, you know, and to also be able to be a platform for other people, but also for yourself. Like, I have tracks that I send around and that got rejected, and I'm like, you know, or that got signed first and then got rejected, you know, like, oh no, you know, it's fine,
yeah.
you know, I would never take it personal. But it's also, if you believe in a certain track and a label doesn't sign it, it might be the right time to start a label. And I think it's really nice the way you did it with all the artwork, and it looks really nice. It looks solid. Somebody thought about it. You really put love in it. So I think you might have learned to believe in yourself and to actually then do it yourself. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
I've done everything myself for the label. Like, I do the artwork myself. I do it all myself. So it's very much a labor of love, right? Because I'm just, and maybe it's a controlling thing. Maybe I wanted to have, like, full control of everything, and
Yeah.
maybe that was, as I said, not being able to control my music coming out because other labels wouldn't release it. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it myself, I can totally control everything about this.
Yeah.
So the thought process between the artwork and, you know, when things go out, and but yeah, one thing I did learn was kind of not to get too wrapped up. And again, this is the different approaches of it, but not to get too wrapped up in feeling like you have to release music every month or all the time. It's like, I feel like, you know, and there's not many, but more so maybe a couple of releases of mine that I put out because I was trying to fill a gap in the label's schedule,
Yeah.
which is kind of the total opposite of why I wanted to do it for the most part, because I
Yeah.
was trying to fill the gap with my music for the sake of, but anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of took a step back and was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have released that myself. This was, you know, maybe like 2 years in where there was picking up a nice momentum. And I just felt like, you know, a release maybe didn't hit as well as it should have done. And I felt like I did it for the wrong reason. So I kind of
Yeah.
stepped back from that and just went, no, like, now it's totally about whenever the music's ready. And I haven't released, I did the fifth 5th year anniversary release last year, and then I didn't do another release for like almost a year or something, because there was nothing that I got that I loved and thought I wanted to come out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Yeah,
music first for me on that.
yeah, that's very inspiring to hear, man. Let's see. I saw my friends from the Underdogs were there as well. That's a while ago, but nice you guys are there. I played for them in last weekend at Toffler. I'm glad you
Nice.
guys are watching. Hope you're still watching because we're going to get into the nitty gritty. Alex FT, well, with a really difficult name. He says, James, you're one of my top producers. These and a minimal dubby house sound. You sits perfectly in my eardrums. I have a question for you regarding percussion. Oh, he will get into the percussion stuff. Well, let's share your screen, James. I'm really enjoying the chat, but let's
Wicked,
get
man,
nerdy. Let's get nerdy. Let's play something in between. I'm gonna play "It's True," which is also nice. Anything you want to say about "It's True"?
This one is a new one, again, not coming out till July, I think. So it's actually quite an early preview of it. It's going to come out as a part of an EP that I have on Bondage Music.
Nice.
And I believe it's a 2-track EP, and I think we're still waiting, but Mihai Popovici is doing a remix.
Oh, no shit. I need to get him on the show.
Of this track, I think, actually.
Oh, wow.
It is this one, yeah.
Oh, I love Mihai Popovici. I'm like a big fan. I think it would be really nice having him on the show.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's one of my favorite producers, one of my favorite guys. Like, we get along so well. Like, I've been fortunate enough, we've played together a few times at some parties, and yeah, he's just he's a top guy. He'd be great to get on this, definitely.
Yeah, because I really, like his productions are so solid, man. I don't know, just the stabs and the percussion. And you can clearly hear it's him, like in the the patience that's in the track and the patience it's been arranged. It's like phenomenal, man.
So for me, him and like Josh Butler, I find two of my favorite artists that instinctively you can tell it's them, but yet the tracks are always so different.
Exactly.
It's class.
Similar to you, and similar to Bernsky, similar to a lot of people out there, man. Okay, let's do the it's true, and then we'll be back with some Logic stuff.
Cool.
And we're back.
So,
What a great tune, man. I think Mihai is gonna rock it. As I said, he's gonna fucking rock that thing. That you
I
gonna.
hope after all this I've remembered correctly. It's either that or the other tune on the EP, but I'm pretty sure it is that one.
I'm gonna be happy listening to both of them. I think I actually played this one in Rotterdam. I might have a movie for you, as I said. So I'll check my phone. It's I don't
Well, that's
think.
why when you asked me for the clips, that's why I sent you the full track, so then you could just at least play them,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
rather than just sending the clips for them.
it's
So
yeah, it's always what I do. I always say, "Hey, come and dive in live," and I get new music, which is a really good
yeah,
way. So,
yeah,
guys, if you
nice.
want to have access to new music, just start a live stream.
Yeah,
We got
yeah.
Kyle Womack in the show, which is nice. Hey, man, Gunmaster, cool. Cool. That's really nice to have everybody on there. We're in Logic. Before we get into it, I want to actually make the screen a little bit bigger so we can see you. Um, because I saw like a whole thing of like hardware stuff, like the MFB, the little guy, the Nord. I also have a Nord.
Yeah.
Volca Beats
So
keys.
yeah, these
Ah,
are just I have my all my inputs set up for my hardware channels. Just everything in my template just preloaded. I mean, as
yeah,
a template, I never really have much apart from I have like one kick that I've been using for the most part of this year actually, and it's like the first time that I've actually ever saved one sound. I've always like, I mean, I say that like reversed cymbals and crashes and
yeah,
like sweeps. I kind of use the same for most of my tracks, but I've always made a conscious effort to kind of start every track as a blank template, right?
Oh wow,
Because
yeah, it's good, man.
I've in the past I just found that I got bored, right? I found
Yeah,
that if I started and maybe found a kick that I liked and a clap that I like after and maybe a hi-hat, and then maybe after two or three tracks using those same sounds, I'm bored of it. So
yep,
I just made a habit just to go, right, every time I start it's going to be a new template. But this year I just found a kick drum, and I found a kick drum that seems to work for me for every style of music.
yeah,
So even if it's like a deeper track, if it's a houseier track,
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but this kick I found, so I have saved that, and that is my template at the minute. And then the rest is just these channels set up for my hardware.
That's so cool.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I knew a guy that like had the same kick for 6 years or 7 years. He had the
Mm.
same kick, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I believe we got Yoko in the house. Yoko, welcome, man. I think
Yo, what's
he
up, man?
he also starts from scratch every time. I don't think he likes templates either. He's very
Yeah.
interesting. He also doesn't like compression, and he just likes to make music. He says, and I think
Mhm.
that's very important. And either way, however you do it because you like it. If you find a workflow that works for you, then
Well,
you can
and
stick
that's
to
it.
it.
Like
Yeah.
I thought there's a lot to be said for creating templates for maybe people starting out as well, like because it gives people get put off by the whole arrangement thing and stuff. So if you can
Mm.
find, let's just say, a basic 9/9 kick and a few basic house sounds just as a beginner to try and set out, having that kind of stuff set up is not a bad thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, I just find that I just get bored of the same sounds,
I
so
can
and
imagine.
then it's not fun.
Here I am teaching everybody workflow and how to create a template to at least like get somewhere, create sort of a formula to get like some certain result. But yeah, I always say like you can change your template, and if you're done with it or you made an EP, you're gonna make a next one with like a new template or change up the sounds. I like to make racks with sounds. Like I have like a rack with hi-hats, so not always
Nice.
the same hi-hat, but there's a few hi-hats and I can tweak them, and I can do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, when I've taught people before as well, I've said the same thing. Like at the early stages, it's good to push a template because it helps you. Just otherwise, you're kind of at the starting gate every time. You've got to
yeah,
create that
yeah,
first block. Whereas
yeah,
it's like give yourself a little bit of a helping hand at the beginning,
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
Hey, and the Vermona, which is that like the drum unit?
It's the drum rack, yeah. So it's
Oh,
actually like in front of me here. Probably can't show you. I can
no.
do a little spin for you, but
Do a little
uh,
spin to the left. Let's see what you have there. I can go. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
we've
I
got
see the
there.
Nord. I
So
see the Nord.
we've got
Yeah.
the Nord, we've got the Triton, and this
Oh, this is
this
this
is
old school
this is my
sequencer.
baby, man. This guy right here.
Is it like an old school sequencer kind of thing?
It's the first thing I ever had before I even had a computer.
Oh wow.
So when I was like 16, I got this thing. Yeah, I can't
Oh
lift it, man.
yeah. No
It's in
worries.
there. It's because of all the cables. But yeah, so it's a Yamaha RS 7000,
Oh,
and
one of those.
you can kind of see. And like, so I was making like garage and drum and bass and stuff with that thing, everything within that box and within that tiny little screen. And I still use it in so many tracks today, because the old school like sounds from it, like the pads and the drums and the basses, are just wicked.
Yeah.
Like, they're really, really cool.
I almost bought one of the other ones when I was younger, like I think it's greenish, bluish kind of thing. Same, I think it's the same sort of species.
Got a rack down there.
Oh, look at that.
So that's got my patch bay on. It's got virus access, like rack synth as well.
Nice, I like the
sound
virus
card.
Yeah.
And the other bits I can't show you because they're right on the desk. I'm trying. Yeah. You can see my TR8 and
pedals. Yeah.
There's the MFB Tans bar. There's a TB3. So I run a lot of this. I got the pedals hooked up so I can run lots of stuff through them.
Yeah.
And then in front of me is the Vermona drum machine. So that's the hardware I'm working with.
Super nice. And how much do you think this hardware influences your productions? Is it because I've used a little bit of gear back in the day, but since I moved to Spain, it's actually all in the next room. And I sold my mixer when I came here, so I don't have anything connected. I do miss it workflow wise sometimes, and and I'm just curious how that works for you. Do you work only with hardware all the time, or combined, or sometimes no hardware at all? How does it go for you?
Yeah, mine's always been, I'd say, a hybrid of the two, right? I have made very few tracks where the whole thing has been hardware.
Yeah.
Purely just from like a programming point of view, and maybe this is where being on Ableton would have been better. Like doing Ableton with, a mixing desk, and you can have everything set up through Midi, and and then you kind of do a live take and stuff like that. But I've never had that set up. Yeah. So my setup's always kind of been, I've got a patch bay, I've got everything synced via an eMagic
MIDI clock,
8 sound card, MIDI port. So I can control a lot of things at the same time. But I tend to just record takes with my hardware. Hardware is amazing for those non-creative days. I think, when days where you're not really feeling as creative, just messing around on one of the synths or something. And one thing I do if I'm really not feeling creative is I'll just try and make some sounds, maybe just with a different mindset of going, I'm just going to make some samples that I then maybe use in another track, and then eventually you just make something, you go, hey, this is sick, I now want to put drums to this. But to be honest, over the lockdown period, I didn't have access to my studio for maybe 6-7 months. So I just worked from home with my computer, and then that kind of forced me to do everything in the box. Yeah. So coming out of that, it's been more. It's always been a balance, but I'm still using a good combination of the both, to be honest. Yeah. But I love the hardware for the purpose that if I know a track is missing something and I know I can get that sound from that piece of hardware, that's essentially, and the way I've built my setup has always been like that. So for example, I think the first drum machine, apart from this Yamaha one, was I got the TR8, and that was because I just really hated programming hi-hats, like clicking a mouse. Or, just drawing them in like a sampler or something. And I was like, man, I need to get like a TR8 just so I can program them in for fun. And, you're just creating hi-hat patterns using that. And so then that, I've always had that intention with every bit of kit that I've bought. So I kind of instinctively know, right, I want a more minimal hi-hat, so I can go to the Vermona, or I can go to the Tans bar, or if I want some cool toms, I can go to the Tans bar, and I don't have to sift through samples for that. So I can get there quicker.
I think that's also the thing for hardware. You get hardware, and if you master the piece that you buy or that you get, then it's your tool. It's like something where you want to go to and why you want to go through there, and I think that's a valuable tool in making music. And I really like it that you say that sometimes when you're not creative or not in a creative mood, you just grab one of these devices and just enjoy the ride. And maybe you end up making music anyway, or you just end up making some sounds. If you're uninspired, the best thing to do is just make some sounds and work in your library for the next time you're are creative. You got all these things that you've recorded, you know.
It's amazing how just one like little mistake or just messing around, you know, something cool will all of a sudden you just like prick your ears up and go, actually, that you get excited about what you've just heard, and that in return just sparks some more creativity. And then, you know, again, in this interview that I did for this for the PR on this release, the question come up about, you know, writer's block, and how I'd said in a previous interview that I don't really believe in writer's block. And it's a mindset for me, and that's, I think that you have to work through it. Everyone's different, and it's finding the you know, finding what works for you, right? But for me, I know that if I'm not in the studio, I'm not making music anyway. Like, that's just not going to happen. So at least if I show up even on a bad day, just from messing around with something, it might spark something that then gets you out of that. Whereas if you're not in the studio even trying, you're sure as hell never going to break it, right?
Yeah, it's all about just pushing through those bad moments, I think.
Yeah. It's like that's part and parcel of it. Like, obviously, as we said before, like, it's got to be fun. You've got to enjoy it. But there are moments where it is harder than others. But those are the times you have to push through it, because otherwise you just never sit back in the chair if it becomes that chore.
Exactly. Well, that's some great piece of advice right there, man.
Hopefully.
So how about this track?
Sorry, my watch is going. Sorry.
Yeah, your watch is just wants to ask you something as well. It's like, oh, it's an interview. Let me ask the guy what he wants. Hey, so Lucid Dreams, it's a pre-master. Is it? It's already released, no? Or
so this was actually another collab that I did with Denny, which came out on Rebellion, so Crosstown Rebels sister label.
Nice. Yeah.
I just thought this kind of project is a good kind of representation of how I'm mixing, you know, hardware stuff that I've recorded in, but also using samples. And how I've kind of, you know, there's you know, just how I've just layered all the sounds together, just to so I thought it might be a good one to you know, to show the sort of combination between
perfect.
the two.
Let's go through it. Maybe you want to play a little bit for the people to listen, and we can hear that bad boy bass.
Yeah. Let's see. Is that loud enough?
Yeah, it's perfect.
You got me hooked.
Yes. That's so nice.
definitely something delaying in there, which is causing a bit of feedback, which I'm not sure what. It's not on the original. That kind of white noise towards the end is not in the track.
It's
But
okay. So I've for me it didn't feel weird. I was just like really amazed by like I like the bass. Like there's multiple basses like creating the pattern, which is nice. Like I like this vocal. It's well done, man. I really like it. It's really nice. And
thanks, man.
Jillian says, "Oh God, please leave that online after the stream. I'm at work and I need to watch that. Love the music, James. Never stop, please." Well, yes, Jillian. All the episodes of Dive in Live are online on YouTube, so you can watch it back as much as you like until the end of time.
Until the end of time.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah, do you want to take us to the track, or do you rather work with some questions that we might get? Because I bet people have lots of questions.
You know what? Yeah, let's go with questions. I think that
Cool.
way it's we can try and get more for the people watching. If they've
Yeah.
got questions to ask, let's go with that for sure.
Cool. Then Kane Sunder asked how to get a round sound in the bass line. You have that bad boy bass going on. I think there's two basses going on, right? Boom, boom, da, da, da. It's like multiple of them. Like,
Let's dive in. Yeah. So it's kind of so this one is there's kind of this acid TB3 sound that's kind of in there as well, but predominantly it's just this bass here, which is actually a Logic plugin. There's nothing too much crazy going on with this in terms of processing. I'm very much someone that really tries to focus on sound selection. And I think that has got to be fundamentally the most important thing, right? Because as everyone says, like if, trying to make something bad sound good, you're already fighting a losing battle. And like, I would rather do a lot less in processing, knowing that the sound already sits nicely, right?
Yeah, same.
I don't think it's a lazy approach. I think it's actually a better approach in that, every time you're adding stuff, it's more processing. It's just, for me, it takes away kind of, I guess, it's much more of an organic feel, right? If you're just adding loads of stuff. Don't get me wrong, on synths and pads, there's a lot of processing to be had there. But with things like bass and kicks and stuff, I try and keep them as clean as possible, and just let them do the work as they should. From the right sound selection. So yeah, this is a Logic bass, the ES2. It's just a preset that I've had saved for a while, Bad bass, because it just always seems to do the job, to be honest. So we're just gonna have a little bit of EQ on there, and then what have I got? I've just got a CLA2 on there just to tighten it up a little bit. And I'm just using the Logic overdrive on this to kind of give a little bit more grit on it. But yeah, I think that's fairly clean in terms of, quite light on the processing.
Yeah, it's not too much crazy shit going on. How about sidechain and stuff? Is there like sidechain going on, or is it like not playing?
I don't think on this one there's any sidechain, because the notes are none of the notes are hitting on the kick.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're kind of offbeat notes. So
that's the easy way, I think that's really, if you're struggling with a good kick and bass relationship, try and make a bass that's not playing at the same time as your kick. Make a track dedicated to not using sidechain as a concept, and see if you can make it really nice. And if you pick the right bass and the right kick, it might sound super bad boy. It's the sound selection thing you said. I think it's really important. I always tell my students, I can teach you everything about EQing, compressing, and sidechaining, and saturation and whatnot. But if you don't choose the right sounds, it's not going to sound all that great. You really need to listen to a lot of tracks you like, and I try to analyze what are they using. And they use a super subby bass and a bass that's slightly on top of that in the spectrum. And if that works, then it will give you a way better mixing experience as well, because they're already sounding nice and they're not in the way of each other. I think that's a really good point, man.
Something I always kind of keep asking myself when I'm making music is like, what's the purpose of this sound, and why is it there, and how much is it adding to the characteristic of the track? Because I feel like, again, common things that I've seen from when I've taught people and stuff is they're kind of just throwing sounds at the project to fill it out, rather than actually
taking note of how key that sound is to the track and how much is it bringing to the track. And that's why I kind of feel with the more stripped back style music, you know, it's just so important that every sound is there for a real good reason, and that way you can get away with less. Because you're not just throwing stuff at the track to fill it out. I just wanted to touch on what you said before about, you know, the sidechain, and one thing that I do, I mean, I haven't done it in this track, but is if I am using bass notes that hit on the kick, I tend to put them on a separate channel and I sidechain them separately, because quite often I don't feel like I struggle with getting that duck right for the notes in between. Quite often, you know, I feel like, you know, it will duck nicely on the kick, but then it makes the notes in between pop out too much. And I feel like I find I can get a better balance from just side chaining the bass notes that hit the kick on that channel, and then if I want to side chain the other ones, like these ones on the in between notes, I'd maybe side chain them slightly different. So that's how I'd get a better balance on it.
That's a really great I've never thought of this, man. Just take the notes of your bass line that are playing together with the kick, put them at a different channel, and sidechain only those, because the rest doesn't really need to be sidechained. Nice.
Or if they do, they just might need a different sidechain. You know, again, it's all relevant to what kind of bass you're using. I mean, you know, certain bass sounds are going to sound different when the kick punches in, and what frequency things are hitting.
Interesting. I like that approach.
Also, I think for the notes that are on the bass line, that are on the kick as well, by putting them on another channel, you can also, you know, just slower the attack on the envelope, so that, you know, it's a bit of a fade on the note, so it just gives that kick a little bit more breathing space. So if you do a combination of, you know, a slow attack, not super slow, but just enough that it just kicks in just after, maybe midway through the kick, and sidechain that, it just really cleans up that kick area, you know, as well as EQing, which I can touch on as well. But I mean, for me, I think EQing is one of my most powerful kind of tools in the way that I use it. I just think with the right sound selection and good EQing, you can achieve a hell of a lot in your mix. Make a lot of things work just from doing the right EQing.
I think great tips all around, you know, especially with the level of depthness in the compression, and what you say, sound selection in EQ can already do shitloads, so that's nice. Stripped is here. Shout out to Stripped, and I see Easttown's online. Hugo, nice you're here, guys. Stripped is asking, do you use any bus processing on the drums?
Yeah, a little bit, as in like grouping or sending to a bus. Would you think it means?
Maybe grouping, maybe both. What do you do with all the drums?
Again, as I said at the start, every track is is pretty much a blank template. So I wouldn't say I have set rules on every time I make a track, I'm going to bus, you know, the hats and the claps together, and then I'm going to do it that way, because again, I feel that doesn't leave me as open as I should be just to analyzing every track individually. Obviously, you know, there's basic principles and fundamentals of, you know, busting your drums and things which will give you a tighter mix, definitely, but I just like to do everything individually, like in each track, sorry. So I mean, I've got a few buses sends set up. So I've got some overdrive, which is just, you know, a bit of overdrive on the drums, which I might send, you know, bus from the channel, and then just some like parallel compression. That's probably one of the main things I use on drums, is just sending a little bit of parallel compression, but I wouldn't necessarily do that from a group bus, you know, that I just send things individually, because I like I like the sort of flexibility of just giving each thing its own send, you know, rather than grouping it together. And I just think I like to treat each sound individually. I think it's just the way I've done it. So, but occasionally, if I think, you know, if I've maybe got 2 top loops or something going and I do need to tighten them up, I would maybe then put them on a bus and put a compressor on it.
Yeah.
To just to glue them together a little bit.
Interesting. I have similar ideas actually. I have like a parallel distortion and a parallel compression chain since I think since like a half a year. Really just been using that and sending
Yeah,
sounds then rather than putting shitloads of saturation on the group of my drums. You know,
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
sending a few hi-hats, sending a few claps, maybe a snare there, and having the rest maybe cleaner in there. Really helps, you know, and therefore you always already have like some sort of like compression going on, so you don't really need to maybe compress all your drums, you know,
yeah.
like
It just feels to me so very savage, right? If you're putting a lot of all your drums in one bus and then you're going to saturate the whole lot together. I
yeah,
just feel like you're just taking everything that is individual, putting it together, and then just squashing it. Whereas if you want to squash them, I would tend to do it separately on each channel, to be honest. And then also you're then getting you're getting a different kind of balance between the sounds, right? Even if you distort them slightly different, or put a different, you know, even just using a different plugin, you're still kind of just drawing in different characteristics from using separate plugins rather than just doing it all on one.
yeah,
But
yeah,
in certain styles of music, like that's kind of what you want, right? So it really,
yeah.
again, depends what
Depends
sound
what
you're
you're
after. Like
after.
some of the
Yeah,
old, you know, less like Kerry Chandler style drum stuff, like everything just sounds like it's been like saturated together, but
super
that
compressed
works
or so.
because that was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
style back then. So
yeah,
it's about knowing, I guess, what kind of you're trying to achieve from it.
yeah.
So
What's the taste? You know, yeah, your
yeah,
taste. What do you want?
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you want? You know, you want to like super compressed or super distorted, super processed stuff. You want a bit more like raw, like organic kind of vibe to it. You know, like it's straight out of the machine. Yeah,
I mean,
interesting.
I don't get too nerdy with it, if I'm honest. For me, it's, as I said, like sound selection and groove and just throwing everything together. And, you know, I do mix as I go along, but, you know, I am not so much someone that's just like that. I'm trying to think of the right, like so meticulous about their plugins and the way that they, you know, like compress things. I just kind of just roll with it in the session. If I need to go for light compression, I'll put it on. I'm not too anal about these things, you know. I just think, if to my ears, if it sounds good, I trust that.
Yeah, yeah. I've over the years I've been doing less and less and less processing. I had some time like 10 years ago. I was just smashing everything with
Mm.
with glue compression on every group, and you know like fucking putting everything compressors in places they shouldn't be. Man, I rather have it sound good without lots of stuff, and then
Yeah.
go from there. And actually over the years maybe get closer to good
Do,
sounds. You know.
do you know what I found? And I think it could be a thing for other people, but for me, I feel like it's very easy in this kind of game that you learn a new trick and then you use it on everything because
Yeah.
it sounds so good. You're like, oh, this new compressor sounds good, so good, I'm gonna use it on everything. But then after a few months, you kind of pull away from a little bit, and then it's a case of maybe over the course of a few years when you've been doing it, that's where you draw from, going, okay, this will work with this and that will work with that, and not using it so like, you know, everything has to be done with the same
Like a winning
thing. You know, you kind of
formula.
learn a
Yeah.
little bit of a different taste of this plugin will make that sound a certain way, and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's why some people use hardware. No, they have their pedals and they just route their drum computer through that pedal. And I've read this article on Resident Advisor from I think Maya Nidam, and she said like she just disconnected everything in her studio, tried to hook up certain combinations of pedals and devices to see what she liked and renew her whole setup. And I think with plugins you can do exactly the same. Like try a few ones over a few EPs and then change it up and see if you know, and just explore new connections if you're done with your current sound, you know, or and yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you start a track? Rubel asks. Is there a process that you follow every time, or just experiment and go with the flow? I guess we can
Drums
already.
first,
Yeah.
always drums.
Yeah.
Drums. Yeah, it's always a blank template apart from this kick that I'm now using. But yeah, it's drums, bass, then probably pads, and then I'm thinking synths and vocal kind of key elements of those nature. But for me, because I don't know, I've just always been drawn to drums and bass, and like just though the groove of those things together, right, has always been, whenever I'm in a club, I'm just like, oh, I love that bass, or I love those drums. Like those are the standout features for me. And I think that I always make those first because I feel like if I can get to a point where, let's say, I've been listening to it for like 2 hours and it's drums and bass and it works, I know there's not much left to add because that on its own is enough. Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's just what I like. So, yeah, that's what I start with, drums and bass.
Yeah, it's handy. It's handy. I sometimes start like with, I usually start with kick and drums and then bass as well. But sometimes also I really recently noticed it's kick and then it's drums and then it's pads and then bass. Because sometimes I like to have like this sort of like pad. And I remember when I used to work with my Nordlied, that sometimes we just put a pad with like an endless, with the pedal on, that it would endless run out of this Nordlied and just would filter it down. That would be like a little bed that was like, you know, that's just going on, and then build on that atmosphere sort of. That's a really nice way. You know, but
so the reason I would like always do it that way and add the pad after is because I want to know that like the minute you put a pad in a track, right, it's particularly in this kind of style, it naturally kind of brings it down a little bit. It has this deepness. It kind of pulls back on the energy a bit, right? So I find that if I add that when I know the track before I added it is already got the energy and it's got the bass, I know that when you get to a point of taking that out in the track, it's then already going to be, it's going to have the energy you want. Whereas I've noticed when I've tried to make it where I've used pads and melodies and stuff first, when I take those bits out, it then lacks. And I find like, why haven't I got the energy? Because I've written the bass line around those pads or around those kind of synths. So then when they're taken out, you're kind of lost for energy. So for me, that's why I always do the drums and bass first and make sure that they're solid on their own. So anything else I add, will add something on top, but when they're taken away, the energy's still there.
Yeah, nice. That's very interesting because if you look at it this way, it is the kick and bass are the foundation of like a house, you know, the foundation of the track. It's dance music. It needs to fucking have the energy. And if it doesn't have it because you first threw in a pad, it's an interesting way of looking at it, man. I think I've never heard somebody said that. I think that's really.
But some people, you know, in the opposite side, like, you know, will make great bloody music from probably writing melodies and stuff first, but it's just how it works for you, right? I struggle doing it the other way around. I mean, I can, like I said, I can make it work, but then when you take those pads and stuff out, it's like that's what you've written the track around, so without them it sounds weird.
Man. It's interesting. It's interesting how that works. But you know, people just can go from you try everything. I think if you start a few times, you start differently every time, see how you can do it, you know. Then Tiago, my friend from Dublin, I'm glad you're here. Tolstoy says hello from Germany. James keeps the seriousness in his music as an artist. I love as he is a real musician and doing great underground tracks and no Instagram sellout model. Keep it up, James. Well done, my friend.
Thanks. Don't get me started on Instagram.
Thanks for the great vibes, Tolstoy. Good, you appreciate undergroundness. Let's see. I see East Town and Stripped having a chat. That's nice. Chat it out, guys. Oh, what's that? That's so cool. That's like, was that my voice in some kind of?
I don't know what happened there. It was getting.
It's so interesting.
All over the place.
James is sampling me, guys. He's gonna use my voice in his next. The low end of James is always great. Something I would love to master. Yeah, I have to say. Oh wow.
Let me mute all my channels just in case that's coming from here. I've muted everything, so that shouldn't happen again.
There might be some input that's still active. Yeah.
I can touch on that if you like quickly. What that he said about the low end of what was the
how you had that your low end is always so solid and avoid muddiness. Let's make it. How do you avoid the muddiness? Do you do some like EQing on your bass? I saw you did a little bit around 200 hertz or something, and maybe the kick. Do you EQ them?
So I do. I pretty much take 200 hertz out of everything, to be honest. It's just a frequency that I feel doesn't really need to be there, right? And particularly there's quite a lot of pad sounds have that kind of range. So I feel like if anything deserves it in the track, it's got to be around there. But even still, I'm going to take some of that frequency out. I just feel like it doesn't really do any benefit for, for club ready music.
200 hertz. That's interesting. Yeah.
I feel like it just clears up the mixes. That seems to me in my studio, and it just seems to be a muddy spot. So I just take it out. And I'm not talking like
cutting the whole the whole frequency range out.
No, but just like 3 dB or something like.
Yeah,
a little
exactly
bit, yeah.
that. I mean, this track's maybe not the best to demonstrate because the kick and bass aren't on it together. But when it comes to the muddiness, I do like that, match EQing from my kick and bass.
yeah.
So I'll go through, and if there is a bass note hitting, and I mean, I could show it if I do it. Just move this so it sounds a little bit. So I've just moved it so they're playing at the same time.
Yeah.
So just to demonstrate. So as I said before, if the notes are hitting on the kick, I'm probably going to pull it down on another channel. I'm going to sidechain it separately. Depending on the sound of the bass, as I said, maybe like raise the attack on the envelope a little bit just to give it that extra room for the kick. But for the muddiness and the kind of clarity in the low end, this I think is a must for anyone trying to get like this mix tight. It's just match EQing. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll use the analyzer and I'll see, right, we've highlighted the kick, so it's poking its head around here, right? So we're about 64 hertz. So then what I'll go into the bass EQ and I'll type in, let's just do
64.
Let's type in 64, and then I'm going to take that out a little bit. So then that gives the bass the frequency it needs to come through when the kick's playing. And then I'll also do the same thing in reverse. So we'll see the bass is peaking around
43.
around here, right? Yeah. So we'll maybe say about 39. So then I'll go into the kick, EQ, type in 39. And this is all pretty basic stuff, but this stuff goes such a long way.
Yeah.
We've taken, where this becomes an issue is if you've got a kick and a bass that are punching at the same frequencies, because then you've got two things fighting for exactly the same spot. And then if you take one away, you're then going to lose the essence of what that's trying to do. So if you find that your kick and your bass are peaking at exactly the same frequencies, you probably need to change the note of the bass, or maybe transpose, the kick up a semitone or two, just to just pull those frequencies apart a little bit. But ultimately, taking that out of the kick isn't really going to affect it too much. I mean, because it's, we're peaking around this area. So it's the same with the bass. Taking out where the kick was poking around here isn't going to affect the sound of the bass too much, because it's coming in around there.
Yeah, it's just creating a little bit of space, which is nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really basic technique, which also really works really well. I like the track spacer plugin as well, so they can sort of like, what track spacer has like it does this matching. It's sort of like a sidechain kind of thing, but then it's like a 32 EQ band, so it also would sort of like take, like it does EQ matching, but then live sort of, which is nice. Okay, I find that helps a lot. But it's also again what you say about what key are you playing your bass and your kick,
Yeah, and as I kind of go back to what I said before, like sound selection being key in the first place, right? I mean, I do follow the real basic principles of stuff because I don't want to do too much. I feel like if I'm doing too much, then maybe the sounds aren't right to start with.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like, if I spend all this time trying to EQ it and it doesn't have the same energy, it doesn't have the same vibe, but I have to EQ it a certain way to make it fit, it's just telling me it's not the right bass. Yeah. So I much prefer to be able to just use sounds that minimal stuff needs to be done in such a basic way, because I feel that just that energy of that translates better. So yeah, minus 200 hertz as well on a lot of the bass will also clear up a lot of the muddiness.
yeah, that's like classic. Yeah.
But also, I mean, what I tend to do is what I haven't done on this track, but a lot of my tracks, and people have asked me this before when it comes to like the bass and getting them to sit the way that they do, I quite often use maybe 2, maybe even 3 different bass sounds to create the bass line. So maybe, you've got, let's say 6 notes, 2 notes might be on one bass channel, 2 notes might be of a different bass sound, and then another 2 notes might be of another different bass sound.
Yeah.
So then you're getting these different ranges in your bass,
you know, that if they're sitting right, it will just allow you to get this different spacing in your mix as well, which makes it more interesting for your ears. You feel it differently.
It's like the question and answer.
Endless possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's beautiful because I like to use like 2 or 3 basses lately. I've been just really trying to get one sort of like melody out of my bass, but then like having 3 different bass lines play that melody, which is nice because then you get really sort of like this conversation of the sounds going on. And if you then here and there have a pad or a stab that answers to it, or you know, it creates more of a dynamic kind of thing, which doesn't really need you to focus so much on mixing, because it's all like one big sort of follow-up of sounds, which makes it way easier than that everything is just doing the same thing.
It's interesting you say that, because I, you know, again, one of the things I've fully focused on when I make a track is that call and response kind of method, right? And not necessarily between like any sounds particular like each time. It's just like the sounds within the project I want to bounce off of each other, and that's the way I look at it. I feel like it's just how you get this, it's how you get the energy, it's how you get that kind of, it's hard to articulate, but you know,
how you get sort of like the journey in there, you know, like
exactly. And this track actually does that quite well. I feel like, you know, you've got the synth kind of doing that wah, 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 wah. And then there's other bits, the vocals coming off of that doing something totally different, like the airy, spacey vocals. But it's all about, you know, spacing them so they're not hitting at the same time, giving them space to breathe, but responding to what the other thing's doing. And I feel like that's when you really kind of open tracks out a lot more, rather than just relying fully on a bass line to do all the work. Or, you know, and obviously it's the fundamentals of the track, like the bass line, but you know, you can get so much more out of interesting, unique sounds on their own, just responding to something else.
And that's before all the mixing bullshit, so to say, you know, like that's what like Joko was saying as well, you know, you can get really deep about all the mixing, but in the end, it's also like, what are your patterns doing? So like, I have this thing I always tell my students, it's The Art of Mixing, which is a great documentary for some psychedelic dudes that made it in the 90s. Like they made me watch it on SIE, or it made me bought the book as well. And it's a great little piece of like some psychedelic people that showed how they made like software that would represent a mix. But then they say in the beginning, what makes a great mix? It's also the patterns of all your tracks. It's not only volume and compressors and this. It's the whole patterns. Is what instruments are you using? What's the whole vibe of the track? You know, do all the sounds actually fit together? You know, it's like a whole thing. The rhythms. You know, what makes a great mix is also what makes a great track. So if you focus on the music first, the rest will fall into place at some point, I think, you know.
Yeah, that's what I feel. And I feel like the moment I kind of stop to think about the mixing process, and as I said before, over processing things to make it fit, it's just like taking away from the rhythm of making something, you know. It's taken away from that moment of like creating something, jumping onto the next thing, because you just, you know, and so everyone works differently, so it's finding what works for you. But you know, for me, the moment I kind of stop to think too much about those things, I kind of lose the creative flow. So I'd much rather just get everything down and, you know, in that space, in that moment, and then deal with the processing stuff later.
Yeah, exactly. I really like our last few years have been more and more focused on making the music instead of processing everything like crazy before I actually finish the track. Kane, Sander, I think we've answered your question maybe with the call and response. Any tips to make the song interesting? I usually manage to have elements that I like and are very good, but I feel that at a certain extent my tracks can become repetitive or with a basic structure. Do you have anything to add for our friend Kane?
Yeah, again, it's quite a common thing. I think that people feel like, you know, they get their sound down, and then, you know, after so long, it kind of becomes a bit more repetitive. I think setting up a bus chain, which is something I've done maybe the last couple of years, where if you have various plugins that kind of create random effects, and if you set up a bus and send certain sounds to that channel and then add like delays and reverbs after that randomizer, and then have your snares or percussion hitting those things,
it's kind of going to act as like a live animal in the background that's always sending different trigger sounds in the background to kind of, it gives your ear something new each time, even though the same thing is happening on the surface. It's that underlining bit in the background. That's one thing to do.
Yeah, man, I think random shit is good anyway, you know? Just if you think it's boring, just try. I always have the crazy chain. Just create like a whole bunch of effects and just send stuff to it and see what comes out, sample it and put it in your track. So whenever you're stuck, just do something weird.
Yeah, that's
radical,
it. There's no rules to this, man. It's just like, but even, for example, you can, get like, there's so many like, background loops or things like that in sample packs where you get like 64 bars of random stuff. If you put that on a channel and then, like you say, just mash it up with processing, with delays and automation and pitch shifts and all that, and just have that subtly in the background, that in itself will add a whole new extra bit of, depth to the track that's going to take your ears away from the repetitiveness, but just add something different to it.
And do you use like polymeters sometimes, like making loops just like 6 or 5 instead of 8 or 16, that you make them like 9 or like a bit more techno-y? That's
so I kind of on some things I do that because again, that creates more of that live feel if things are slightly out of timing, right? So then it's not doing the same every 16. But that's more, I would say, with like effects, and like there's a particular effect that plugin that I use, which is called like the Replicant.
From Native.
I wouldn't have used it on this track because I didn't have it before. But it's like a randomizer, and let me see if it's on the Audio Damage Replicant too.
The Replicant. I thought he was a replica. I don't even know this guy.
This guy is it takes a little bit of time to get your head around it, but it's great for kind of creating random shit.
That's nice.
So I've got a chain. I think is it in this project? No, it's because this is an older project. But essentially, I'd put this. I mean, I can show you how it works if you like.
Yeah, please do. Timmy,
and it'd be good to do it on like a percussion to kind of show.
Yeah, show what it does. Yeah.
So let me just highlight this. So what I would usually do is send it to a bus. So this percussion channel, and then let's put like the Replicant on it. And there's loads of various like presets. It doesn't really matter because the whole thing is like random, right?
Yeah, Replicant sounds like some kind of. I have to think about some lizards, and
So we send it to that, and then that essentially is just it's almost like a noise gate type thing that it's just going to open and close at random times, but it creates like these stuttering effects, and it's got this filter, and you can change the panning, and then like the loop size for how long, when it doesn't like stutter, how long that loop will last for. And then these are like the steps essentially of like how often it will hit. So you can randomize that as well.
This is
so as you were saying before
Yeah.
about like the poly thing where, you know, you can change the timing on it. If you put this as a totally offbeat time, when it, you know, that randomizing itself is going to be totally out of whack, but then just creates, you know, just this live movement in the background.
Yeah, it says bits on it as well, so you can. It's like a redux as well on it, so it's like you can really create some really interesting stuff. And then what you said, taking loads of audio loops and just get them through the machine, and you get loads of cool, interesting craziness.
So if for example you put that on a bus and send this percussion to the bus, and then add like, I don't know, some big reverb underneath. Let's just pull something random. I'm a big fan of this reverb, by the way, the Space Designer for Logic. Like the Logic stuff.
Oh man, the Space Designer.
I use a lot.
Yeah, I remember from back in the day, you could also have it reversed and create this crazy shit.
So let's just see. I'm just gonna mute that bass for a second.
I love that bass though.
It's a nice bass. So then if we add a delay on there as well, and then I'll just start playing around with this.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll kind of hear it trigger. Let's just do that. Let's just go through some presets and
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
So you can see like each time it's going to hit differently. I'm going to turn that reverb down a bit. But what I've got on my template, on my new template, is I have, so this is one channel with, maybe I'll just have a delay on it. Then I'll set up another replicant with a reverb on it. Then there'll be another bus with a replicant on it with another kind of like an auto filter or something. And then if you send like one sound to 3 different versions of this, and then all your other percussions to it as well, just you can kind of turn it down in the mix. But if you've got 3 or 4 sounds, even synths going to this in the background, that will be enough to just totally transform your mix from something just being a repetitive loop to something that has all this random stuff going on in the background.
That's such a nice tip. Well, I think we've answered the question really well. Like, Kane, if you get this replicant, set up a bus, go to town. Do you have?
I say it takes a bit of time to get used to because there's so much going on.
Yeah, with these things, sometimes I'm like, what is it actually doing? Is it actually doing something? You know, it's hard. It's the same with beat repeat.
To be honest, it'd be a lot easier to show you what it does on a pad because then you've got more of a constant sound. But if I put it on this vocal, maybe. Yeah, if I put it on that. And then just put it directly on, you'll kind of see what it will do.
It's sort of like Tantra, maybe.
Oh, we've lost audio on that. I need to change my buffer size. 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. It's a heavy replicant.
Yeah. I think we're going to need to bring it lower because it might do. Let's see that. I'll just take it off this as well. It's going to work. Okay, so if we put it on there, you can change where it's the steps that it's going to hit on, so you can have it hitting less frequent. So that's what it's doing essentially. So if you put that on a bus and then send your sounds to that, you're going to hear those kind of juddering effects just through a bus rather than directly on the channel. And then, as I said, if you place your delays and stuff after that, you're going to get delays on what that has triggered. So then you're going to create that kind of live moving feel. And I've been using that for the last couple of years on my tracks, and it's really made a difference for me in like thinking, as that guy said earlier, like, this track's just a bit repetitive, to then, the track's doing exactly the same thing, but all this stuff's going on in the background.
Yeah, it's a great way to create like a nice little background loop, which is actually pretty organic, because you're not just going for a noise loop or anything from your sample library. You just create it yourself from the elements that's already going on in the track. So it feels organic having this thing in the background. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, the one frustrating thing with it is it never does the same thing twice.
Yeah. Well,
so sometimes you might have to bounce the track 2 or 3 times and then see which version you like to see what the replicant's done in the background.
Exactly.
But it's usually quite minimal. I've usually got it really toned down in the background just as a texture, so it doesn't really matter, but it does just do. It does a good job.
I had it with some LFOs on filters and stuff that I rendered the track, and I was like, hey, the previous render was sounding really nice in the break. Where did this go? And then I ended up like just automating the whole thing instead of like having the LFO going on. Yeah, it's, you gotta be keen on that stuff. All right, let's move on. The questions keep piling up. Tolstoy, when you start drums first, do you already know which key you will use later on for the synths? So like, when do you determine what key you're going to use?
I'll be totally honest, I don't think about keys in terms of drum. I know some people tune their kicks to their tracks and things like that. I don't think about that. So for me, it would be, I'd do bassline. So the bassline would probably determine the key of the track. Not necessarily from the drums.
Great answer. Yeah, and some people tune their kicks and whatnot, but you do transpose your kick sometimes when you feel it's necessary, so you don't really look at what key it is, you just transpose it a bit maybe.
Yeah, I'm not looking at that stuff. I know some people do, but
Yeah.
I just go by my ear, right? And usually I might just transpose the kick if, as I said, maybe the bass is exactly how I want it and it's not working with the kick. Yeah, let's just maybe move the kick a semitone up, or a semitone down or something, just to give them a bit of breadth, but between each other. But yeah, I don't think that deeply that I'm tuning kicks and stuff to the keys of the track and stuff. Some people do, and some people say it works really well, but I'm not there with that.
Yeah. So once
again, it's too much of that, like taking away from the creative process and more just thinking about fundamentals and principles. And I'm just like, I just want to make a tune in that moment and go with how I feel.
Deep. Yeah. And if you make a bass line, you know which key you can then use that scale which you played the bass line for the rest of the elements.
Yeah,
right?
And it's also easier, I find, to like, if you write a bass line and then you're adding synths and pads on top, it's easier to change the bass line than it is to change your chords and your pads and stuff after. You can genuinely shift a bass note a couple up or down to change it to the key that then might work better if you found a better synth or stab that you prefer in a different key. I feel like it's easier to just change the bass a couple of notes.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, good tips. We got Ecuador in the house. Saludos, Daniel Garcia. Alegro que estás mirando. Really nice. I can practice my Spanish a bit with all these. A11 sounds great. Can you go through some of your drums in this project?
Sure.
Yeah, so some of there's a top loop there, multi-track process, but there's also like claps and tons bar heads. Maybe just go about them, see what what your drums are doing.
So yeah, as I said before, it's a hybrid of stuff, I'll use samples, I'll use some of the hardware. So we've got clap, top loop, and then we've got Tanz bar, so a hat from Tanz bar.
Oh, and there's a head buzz. What's the head buzz doing?
Let's see, where was that?
I see a head buzz there. A head buzz.
Hold on. Why is this? 1 second. Hat bus. So that might be because it looks like I might have
filter or something.
Maybe filtered them down. Yeah. Maybe in the breakdown. It's possible. Yeah. Look, so we've got the hat bus here. I'm guessing that we just we did some stuff in the breakdown.
The reverbs and the synth. Yeah. I love sending all heads through it. Yeah.
There's a bit of reverb, and then we've just filtered that down just on the break. So what else have we got? And then there's a hat loop here as well, and then some percussion.
Again, the question and answer kind of in call and response.
Yeah, so that'll be the drums there. So we've just got a kick from the TR8 here. Then I've recorded in, so I think the clap is a sample. Shall I solo them? I mean, if people want to hear them on its own, is that?
Yeah, it's also nice to hear the whole thing, but yeah, you can just go over them, and it's nice.
Yeah, so I've got a clap here with just probably some basic EQ, taking the low end out.
Quite a short one as well. It's pretty short. It's nice.
Sorry, say again. I can't hear when you speak.
Yeah, it's pretty short. The clap's really nice. Have it like a nice and short clap. Gives it nice.
And then we've got a little bit of just a basic Space Designer Logic reverb on there. And sometimes I'm using this trick of just adding a little bit of overdrive, but I'm not kind of driving it, right? Just to give, get an extra dB or two in the mix without kind of pushing it too much, Yeah. So I can play that. So it's a little bit softer without it, but I'm not kind of driving it crazy to distort the sound,
Yeah.
So what else have we got? Yeah, then there's this top loop, which would just be a sample.
I like this one. It's nice.
I don't know what's going on with that.
Seems to be a lot of low end in this loop as well.
That was because the percussion was playing.
Okay.
So similar thing. I've just used that overdrive trick there just to bring it out in the mix a little bit. We're going to be looking at some EQing here. And what I said earlier about when the guy was asking like the muddiness in the, you know, in the tracks and with the bass and the kick, I do the same thing like with the match EQing in my hi-hats. If I've got several hi-hats going on, I'll make sure that I take out frequencies that might be clashing, because you know you do it for the low end, why would you not do it for the top end?
Yeah, otherwise you get too much in the high end maybe. Yeah,
but you know, it's all pretty basic stuff, to be honest. I'm not I just, as I've said, sound selection for me is key. So it's about finding what sounds work well together from the off. And then recorded in this hat from the Tans bar, which is just pretty straightforward, but that hat actually carries the track quite nicely, that one, because it's quite nice and bright. It lifts it. We've got this kind of shuffly, shakery hat going on. So yeah, just basic stuff, just some EQ, taking out some of the frequencies. You'll notice I'm using a stereo imager rather than panning thing. I just feel like it keeps a fuller sound all round using an imager, and like the waves one, you know, you're shifting the whole sound to one side, as opposed to when you're panning, you're kind of taking it away from one side, right? And you're kind of losing the full sound, I think. So I don't really pan too much. I kind of use a stereo imager on most things, but it's never too drastic. It's only just a little bit, because I know most clubs you're going to lose that stereo image anyway.
But this one is also funky. You can actually point it more. It's mono as well with the slide below. I think it's really cool, this plugin. Some people told me, I get a lot of phasing, but then again, you know, there's no rule. If you just enjoy using this guy, just use this guy. And I just have a question, right? Because you do quite a bit of processing as well. You know, it's like EQs, it's like this. How long usually does it take you? Do you first make the track and then start doing a separate session for the mix down? Or do you go as you go? Or like, you know, when I have sort of the main idea of the track arranged and like I'm working on breaks, at some point I'm just listening to the full track and then adding my low cuts or starting to EQ things as I'm actually listening to the track. How does it go for you? Do you do that similar, or do you do it in the end?
Yeah, I do a lot of it as I go along. But as I've said, because I'm kind of making sure the sound selection is right from the off, I don't feel like it slows me down too much doing these bits of processing, because it's quite small amounts, right? It's a little bit of, you know, EQ here for the kick and the bass, getting them tight. Same with the hi-hats and, you know, the mid-range frequency with like the pads and, you know, maybe the bass as well. So the majority of it I do, you know, as I'm going along. I'm learning more to take my time on tracks, but I've always had this thing where I want to break the 90% of the track, you know, in that first session, because I find that when I go back to a track, maybe the next day, if it's like 40% done, chances are I'm not feeling it in the same way that I was yesterday. And then I start messing around, changing the sounds, changing the kick and the cap, and I kind of feel like I then chase my tail a lot with it. So fundamentally, I'll try and get the majority of the track done in the session. Don't get me wrong, that session could still be a, you know, 11 in the morning till 8 at night session. It's, you know, with like breaks in between, but I will always then come back and revisit the mix with fresh ears. Usually a couple of weeks later, I kind of just let something simmer. I don't like, put it this way, I feel like everything that I've done in a short space of time and then sent it off to labels very soon, because I'm in this headspace of like, oh my God, it's amazing. I've kind of regretted doing it. So I kind of now have a rule that I won't really send anything out to a label, you know, for a couple of months after I've made it. I need that time to come away from it, mix it down a little bit more, and really kind of just get out of that like kind of honeymoon period of the track, right?
I have the same, man. I really need to temper myself, like, and really like come back to it and then mix it again, go like, oh, maybe it's a mix, you know, and or maybe like the break needs a little bit more of like a peak there, you know, and then you've already like sent it out, you've already like made a mix down of it, while you're actually like a month later you go like, oh, you know what, I should have like improve that break a little bit more, you know, and that's like interesting how that works. So I think I'm also gonna like I've done it with a few tracks now that I'm actually going back to it that I didn't do anything with yet. I'm like, hey, I'm actually glad because I'm making this whole list of tracks. I'm like, oh, going back, oh, these need just this, and sometimes you just need a month or 2 or 3 to see what a track needs, man. It's all about, but it's all about creating a lot more in the meantime, so you can actually reference your own shit to your own shit, basically, you know, and go like, hey, compared to all these other ones, this one is actually. And now I understand why I've made it. All right, it's interesting how it works. Yeah.
So one thing I am doing, and I'm pushing myself to do it, is, you know, before I would maybe, you know, break the back of a track in like the most part of a day, and then I come back to it and be like, yeah, it's cool, and then maybe, you know, spend a little bit of time, but I've had my time with it, and then I want to let it sit and then come back to it and then see how I feel. But now I'm more like spending the most part of a day on a track, trying to break, let's say 70-80% of it, so it's at that phase where I'm then not going to go back and change everything, but I'm now trying to learn to come back and then spend more time going, okay, how can I make this even better? And not an approach of like I want to change everything, but I'm really trying to home in on like super analyzing what can make it better, because, you know, it's great to have that spurt of doing it all in one session, so you capture that kind of creative session, right? But don't be shy to go back and then analyze it, go, okay, how much more does it need? And, you know, without trying to change too much, maybe it's just tweaking things a little bit more. But
and really being honest, like, what's the weak point of the track and how can I improve it? It's hard, man. I find it really
very hard because you kind of got to be self-critical about it. You know, and like the honeymoon period of making it is the fun part, but
like breaking up in the honeymoon period.
Exactly, you know,
like
but
really
coming back and being critical on it and going, okay, I know this is good, but maybe it's just because where I feel I'm at with, you know, in the industry or the music that I'm making, that I need to be upping it more. So I've got to change something about what I'm doing, and, you know, I can't sit there and make half a tune and then come back the next day because I just won't be feeling it. So it's like I need to do most of it, but then come back and really like figure out how I can make it even better.
Yeah, man, that's hard. It's hard to like really get that.
You've got to do something different every now and then, because otherwise it stays stagnant, right? And then you can't really push to the next level if you're always doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep pushing yourself, and sometimes it's hard. You know, I really like to do one session and finish a whole track and go like, that's it. But it's really you have to get back to it and see if you can improve it. That's really, we need to do that. All right. So Jean-Paul Roman asked, how do you create bass lines? Can you make one for us? Well, I don't know. Maybe you just look at a different project, because I think Sarge Malone and Ben Davies are asking for a track. I'm also really curious. Sorry, Sarge. I'm gonna ask. Ben is asking, looking at the month remix you did for Origins, as I'm releasing on Origins end of the month. I'll be really nice if we can look at that remix.
If I can have a look and see if it's
how's it. Sure. And then we can have a look at the bass, Rubal or Jean-Paul Roman. We'll have a look at the bass.
I mean, whilst I've got this project open, I'll show you the bass, because I've already got the, you know, one thing, and this is a really cool plugin, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's actually also cool. Somebody asked also what you use for plugin for bass, so that's maybe nice.
So this bass line that this particular plugin is a Logic one, ES2, but I'm kind of I'm kind of firm believer in like letting the machines do the work as well, right? As I've said before, the whole kind of making the creative process as easy as possible. And, you know, I'm not musically trained. I've just kind of thrown myself into everything. So there's actually a great plugin called this HY sequencer. And it's essentially like a step sequencer that auto generates patterns that you can then change, manipulate. And it's great for just kind of catching vibes on bass lines and stuff, even if it's just like a starting point and then you kind of fine tune it afterwards. So this is one way that I make basses.
I love the sequencer approach is always good if you're stuck. Also, people use the Sting a lot, the free Max for Live device. You can just click on a happy face, a happy smile, and it will create a new pattern. And you put the scaler next to it, and it will be in key. And you just record it and then start cutting away stuff you don't need, and you have a bass line. Yeah.
You know, I get asked a lot about, you know, how you do this and how you do that, and you know, is it right or wrong way? I just think, like, fundamentally, as long as what you're creating is original, it doesn't matter how you get there, right?
Yeah, it's just
as long as you
fun.
enjoy the process. And it's about, for me in the studio, I want to be not quick to get something done, but I want to be quick so that I can just capture that creative moment. And you know, I find it frustrating, you know, like playing around on the keyboard sometimes. So if I'm not in the mood to do that, then stuff like this works really well.
Man. Yeah, it's all about having fun. And also, if you don't like spending time playing a bass, try a sequencer and just click buttons until you have something, you know. And it's
and this
nice,
is it. It's like the happy accidents
that
you get from using like sequencers and stuff. So if we go, what's that? Yeah, that's the drums playing in the background. So this track is in A minor. So I'm going to select natural minor and just select A on here.
It's very similar to Ableton. This.
And then you roll the dice, right? And every time you roll the dice, you're going to get a different pattern. Here is each step for each bar. Here's your on and off button for each step. So it's going to randomize that. You've got these cool little like that kind of elongates the note a little bit, so it's almost like a hold feature on it.
Yeah, it's a bit like the 303 kind of.
Down here you've got so this is like the probability. So it's the probability of like how often, when the step sequence hits this note, how often that note's going to play. So awesome. The only annoying thing about this plugin is when it does it randomly. Obviously for bass lines, you kind of want the same note to hit each time, otherwise you don't get that kind of, you know, repetition that you want from it, or consistency that you want from it. Do you
then record like a little bit of the output and record it, and then take the MIDI that it's spitting out and make your own
this is it. Yeah, you can essentially get a pattern that you like. So
this bass, man.
Even that, right?
Here, oh man, I want to make a track. I want to. Okay, bye, James. I'm gonna make a track. Bye.
So we can. Where is it? So these are like your octaves. So obviously, a couple of these notes are quite high for the bass lines at the end. So what I would do is I'm going to put the probability up to make sure they're going to hit nice and consistent.
Oh man!
And it's a case of just like switching things on and off.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
Still a high one here, like that.
Ah, you can change it there. Yeah. Oh man, that makes you want to make music.
Hit on and off. See, I mean, even that took like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's very inspiring.
With this, just hit the record button.
That's that easy. What the fuck? You know, it's nice.
Stop, and then you just drag the MIDI over, and then make sure you mute this, because otherwise it's going to send the signal twice.
Yeah.
And then you've got your MIDI there, and you can, from then on out, you can fine tune it, change your pattern.
Exactly. Well done for this one. Hey, and it's the HY sequencer.
But the reason I show this as well is because, like I said, I'm not musically trained. I learned the piano to like grade 2 or 3, and it's just wasn't for me. Yeah. I'm just more of a like just chuck it in and see what happens. And
if you know a little bit of the scales and the notes in the scale, then you can already make quite a lot of music, you know. The plugin is
it's like how quickly you can get something from something like that. Whereas if I was playing that might take 5 times longer. I might get frustrated in the process, and then by that point I'm like, okay, I'm not in the mood anymore. Whereas something like that, you just go, cool, that works. It might not happen as quickly as that every time, but
and sometimes you hit the dial like, well, okay, right on, let's go. You know, you're like super inspired. You know, it's nice.
Just all about making it easier and quicker, and just get that creative flow just going, really.
Yeah. Hey, Cosmic Water asked what plugin it was. It's the HY.
It's the HY Sequence Collection.
2.
HY sequence collection 2. So customer, what a HY
I think
sequence.
it's pretty cheap as well for a plugin. I think it was, don't quote me on it, but maybe like £40, £30, £40 for what it can do.
It's not too bad.
And also I forgot to show there's the really cool like shuffle function on there, so you can get some really nice swing and groove on it as well. So and because it doesn't do it like, you know, your standard like notes that you get in Logic, you know, the triplets or the swing C, B, and like that, you've kind of just literally just got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it does it in a really cool like shuffling way.
Yeah, super nice. And also, you have these acid option, the dark option, the ukulele option, the hexa option, the stepsy. Is that like?
I mean, it goes into like another world of sequencing with this stuff.
Oh wow, it's like a combination of all
this. You can create more kind of like acidy bass lines if you want. And they've got some presets in there as well.
This is like one of the most interesting.
It does a lot. I've pretty much used it the way that I've showed you, but there are loads of other things that you can do with it. If I mute the MIDI,
it's really nice.
Like that. See. I mean, there's just it's got like 4 different parameters on there, controlling that. I mean, it's just it's a bit of a wild one, this guy.
Yeah.
To be fair, I haven't really dived into it too much, apart from just, you know, the basic step sequence on it, because that's what I got it for. Like I was looking for a sequencer to help with, you know, just like bass lines and stuff, and that came up.
Yeah, well, next time when you're bored, you like, you know, you want to do something, you have the ukulele in mode.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think more maybe for like synths and stuff, you're gonna get some more kind of like arpeggiated sounds and things like that using that.
Yeah, it's also cool for more melodic stuff. You want to go a little bit more melodic on it. All right, so we're like busy for 2 hours. I don't know how you are with your energy. If you say like, hey, we can do another 15 minutes, maybe we can check out that Month remix. And
sure.
Ben, guy. Ben is one of my ex-students. He's doing some cool releases himself as well.
Wicked.
Nice. He's doing cool stuff, man. I'm really, really happy to see ex-students make so many good music. You know, so much good. You can really hear them progress, which is nice. But signing something if you don't have network, it's really hard, man. If you build a lot of network over the years. So for you, if you want to sign something somewhere, you probably know a lot of people, or one release will get you to another label, you know, and it's hard for people that don't have that network yet to get in there, you know. And,
it's one of the hardest things in the industry, I think. And to be honest, it's something that I've always, I don't want to say struggled with, but, you know, I'm just kind of happy making my music in my studio. You know, I'm not really like, I mean, it's just, it is that stepping stone, right? Like you said, you kind of, one label will then open a door to another label. That will then open a door to another label. Some people go out every weekend and network that way, which is, you know, is a fast track way of doing it. I wasn't really ever someone to do it like that. I was just kind of, you know, sitting in the studio making music.
Yeah, man, I think that's a better way. Also, or you need to be a really super business guy or social guy that knows how to.
Nowadays it is the social guy, isn't it? It's you know, you have access to be able to message directly, you know, a lot of artists that before you would have to find an email address and you'd have to hope that they check their emails, and you know, it is. But that being said, there's probably a lot more people trying to do it through the social channels. So those people, you know, not be as open to
many fucking messages, and you know, I can imagine.
Exactly. And it is hard to kind of keep track of them all. But
it's hard, man. Let's play one more track, because we have Desire, which is an oldie.
Yeah, man, my favorite.
Nice. I really like the drums on that one. I like the snare on this one. Let's go have a little listen to that one, and in the meantime, you can find that remix maybe. I hope Ben gets lucky.
All right, man.
dance floor rocker right there. Yeah, you know, I don't know if you can find it. He's been looking, guys, for his remix. But you know, if it's
I have found it. If you want to have a quick look at it.
yeah, let's go for it. If you found it, that's nice. And otherwise, we also have to get you back. Would be really nice. I really appreciate the time you took. We have already spent like 2 hours, and it's been such a journey, man. I really like chatting to you about these things.
Yeah,
It's nice.
It's all good, man. It's been a pleasure, definitely. Yeah, I can. What have we got here? Yeah, so I have found it. Unfortunately, it's not color coded, so it might be a bit of a.
You have to share your screen again if you.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Right, this one.
Yeah, give us a little rundown. That's nice.
Yeah. Let me just check the audio. Yeah. So. Let's do Zoom. Fortunately, with this one, I think I remember, you know, quite often with remixes, I'm only really looking for like one sound that I could use. But fortunately with this, there was quite a lot that I used from the original.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you can see the ones up here with the map things will obviously be the parts, but
Is that a bad boy bass again?
Sorry?
Is that a bad boy bass again?
It's
a bit
not
more distorted, or it sounds a bit like a similar sort of sound, but then
it does. I think this was one that I recorded in from that RS7000, the Yamaha that I got.
Nice.
Because you can see it's just a long piece of audio. Yeah.
Nice bass.
It's that old school kind of bass, right? This one.
I bet Josh loved that.
Just a little bit of subtle kind of overdrive to make it punch through. Again, you kind of see the processing similar to the other track. I've done the match EQ on there. Again, this is the kick. And this is the kick I've been using a lot in this year. This is the one that stayed in the template, this one.
Yeah, it's a nice kick. Cuts through really well.
It just cuts through really nicely. So the parts that I've added, I think, what else have we got? We've got, what was the question? You just wanted to see the project? Or was it
just a little breakdown. Just go for it, man. Just show whatever you think you want to show. It's nice.
So I guess the way I would have done it is, I think all these, everything on the top half of the screen from here up would have been the parts from the original. So if I kind of dive down a little bit lower, then it's going to be the bits that I've added. So you can see all of these bits. So those were the original parts. So my bits are below. So let me just have a look. What else we got? So I added that vocal, that ooh yeah, which I actually think really lifts the track quite nicely. Actually, just that.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it looks like just used just some samples on this. To be honest, I've got a clap. We've got a hat and a clap. That's the kind of standard TR8 clap.
Yeah.
From there.
That works really well.
A nice open hat. Then there's what else? What we haven't touched on is like the processing that I do for like synths. I think there might be some in here. Where are we looking? See here, you know, I was talking earlier about the replicant.
There it is. Yeah.
It is. Nice. So if I've obviously used this kind of science fiction-esque pad, which on its own just sounds like that.
Yeah.
Then you add the replicant. Then I've added some auto filter for some more like randomizing.
For movement and
then you've got a delay, reverb, and then some EQ at the end to take the low end out, and then
it's fucking cool. I
these
really like
kind
the
of mad glitches that just throughout the track.
Yeah, and it's super random. There's no
super random, but in the track it works really well. And just hear it going wow in the background, and I think particularly in like the breakdowns as well, you can kind of hear it nicely.
Really nice.
I'm glad that's in there because we were talking about it earlier.
So this is a really nice example for that. Perfect.
Yeah, and I've also got the same thing going. So pretty much the same processing. I probably would have tweaked the randomizing on the replicant for the channel below. So again, that looks like just some kind of chord type pad sample, which on its own is that. But I've put that on it. Can't really hear it. I'll turn it up. So it just randomizes it, and it just kind of, you just get some cool effects.
Really cool.
And then there's another pad there that I've recorded in from, and just EQ'd that. That's also come from the Yamaha, which is that box, that one there, the little guy in the corner. That would have come from there. And then what have we got in the breakdown?
Oh, I like these steps. These are nice.
So again, that on its own, you can see I use auto filter a lot to create kind of movement in the pads. On its own, it's quite just harsh. It's just there. But you add the auto filter. It kind of creates that more spacey kind of sound.
It just moves, you know.
And the movement, So to be fair, this is quite a simple bunch of sounds put together with, obviously some great sounds from the original. The drums are pretty basic, as I said. It's just like a 909 clap, an open hat, the kick that I've got here. To be honest, with this one, the bass line is doing a lot of the work. It's a really nice kind of punchy, raw bass line. Where is it gone?
Where's the bass? Oh yeah, there it is. Oh yeah, it's
where are we looking? Up here.
It's like number 26, 27.
And then there's a top loop here as well. And then you add in like those pads and stuff that I did with the replicant. See, with like the auto filters and the delays, you just get the randomness to it and get the movement.
Movement. And I always tell my students, if you make music and you decide, okay, I'm gonna add this sound, what can you do with the sound over time? Always think about like, okay, this is okay, but how can I make it interesting? Can I move it? Can I make it longer, shorter, bigger, smaller? Filtered or brighter or darker? I think that's really important. Really nice.
Interesting enough, with this one, I've kind of used the majority of the original sounds for the breakdown. And then it's just really like those drum sounds. Most of them samples. There's obviously like the TR8 clap and the 909 kick from the TR8. And there's the open hat. There's top loop and just that bass line from the Yamaha. And that's kind of that paired with those synths and pads is holding it. Either side of the breakdown, but in the breakdown it's mostly the original parts, and I've kind of brought them in here and there. I think it's the vocal right here. But so
nice with the meta flanger from Waves. I really like that one.
I love that. I use that for all the vocals.
It's really cool.
This was the 5th version of that remix I did, and when I say 5th version, it wasn't V5 with the same track.
It's just
Slightly
5 different
edited.
tracks.
It was 5 different versions I tried, and
well done for commitment, my friend.
I want to mention that though, because you know, I was probably a day away from sending an email just saying I've tried so much to like get this remix right, and I couldn't get it to a place that I was really happy with. And then rather than sending that email, I said, oh, let me just try one more time because I had the day clear, and then I made this version. So
that's nice. I did a remix for Royoster for some friends, like an ex-student that did private lessons, and he's I think he's in Vegas. $sign is his name, and James McKeegan, guys, if you're watching, I sent them a first version in like May or June, and I was like, I think I can do better. Let me do it again. I sent them a second version in July, and I was like, fuck. And then around like end of August, beginning of September, like I thought, okay, I'm gonna really, really make something new. So V3 for me, like V3 new track was really working, and I think that's it's better than not to like release something or remix something. If it's not good, then just don't do it for the sake of just bring something. I think if it didn't work out, you probably would have sent that email, and you would have probably be asked for another remix some other day. But
what it is, and it's like I feel like I probably regret the most. I always like what I put out, right? But I feel like maybe some of the tracks that I don't like as much as I should are probably remixes. And that's based on the fact that in the past, I've kind of peered down to the time constraints and gone, oh, well, it has to be done. And okay, it's kind of good, and I'll just send it out. Whereas now I will specifically say I won't do a remix unless there's a lead time of like 2 or 3 months. Because I need that time to like, as I said before, let the track digest from when I've done it, allow myself a chance to have 2 or 3 attempts at it. But even still, if that happens, I will still turn around and say, do you know what, I just couldn't make it work. And since I've been doing that, 9 times out of 10, most of the time people just go, okay, cool, and we'll find another remix that works.
Yeah, you live and learn, mate. You live and learn.
You
because
have to,
I also released so much music, especially in the beginning, like, and also like just around like all the years I've been releasing. I've released so much stuff. I thought, like, in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have released that, and waited for some more quality to come out. But you live and learn, and it's a journey, and everybody's on their own journey.
I was just about to say that it's all part of the journey.
Exactly, man.
And you just like, you kind of learn from things, and don't beat yourself up about it. You can't change the past, and it's just like, just do better next time. That's that's the way to move forward.
That's it, just take the lesson and go for it, man. It's been such an honor. I think we're gonna like wrap this up because it's been like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, cool,
it's
man.
Almost the longest one. I think we joke with it like 2.5 hours once, which was pretty long.
We can beat that if you want.
We can go on. No, it's okay, man. I think it's we've discussed a lot of stuff. I'm super thank you, super thank you for all the knowledge you've shared. I find it a big honor. I've been playing your music for a few years, and I think many of the guys did as well. And I saw a lot of students. I think you've helped everybody a lot today.
Hopefully, and even if there's just a little thing, I know there's just a world of stuff you can know, but even if someone can just get something right, it's better.
Yeah, man, and it's all about sharing, and I'm happy you did it and that you were enthusiastic from the get-go. Maybe if you can get Mihai to do the same, it would be great. I would be really happy.
Listen, I'll put you guys in touch, man.
Yeah, give
I'm
him a little nudge.
I'm sure he'd be
I would love that. I would love that, And always in the end, do you want anything? If you want to plug anything, because this is going to be online, so people will watch it, and maybe there's something you want to plug about what you're going to do in the future, new releases. And
I mean, the label, check the label. That's my baby. That's what I'm proud of. Obviously, my productions, if they've known me already, they might have checked out my productions, but maybe they haven't checked out the label. And just check that out. I mean, I've always got music coming out. There's obviously the sublease release on Friday, and I think I've got something coming out every month till like end of October. End of August, and
beyond that, there's things penciled in which I'm finalizing and stuff. So there's always music coming out, man. But yeah, check the label out. That's
cool.
That's the one.
Check Inermo, my friends, and I will put the link to your label and to your pages in the on the YouTube video, and it will be there. So people, thank you for tuning in. Next week we've got Alias R. Then we got like a friend of mine, David Hulsken from Holland, a small solar system buddy. He does really great Detroit techno. And then I think Just Butler is going to come back. And then I have some other surprises, but let's not spoil them all. So it's really nice having you, James. And guys, I'm going to turn up the stream now. Thank you for tuning in one more time, and also great to see you back online, Diet Crisps. I'll be back soon with a feedback session on Sunday and more stuff. So thank you guys, and see you soon.
Thanks very much, man.